Right from creation, the Holy Book clearly states that everything the Lord made was good and beautiful. This means everything created by God is unique and for a divine purpose. Nothing is wasted, irrespective of the form and shape of that creation. Unfortunately, not many agree with the saying due to the situation they find themselves in. Some came into the world without legs, arms, and others with a defect in the eye, brain, or even the bone. Would you say they are not beautifully created due to their condition? This is the question that begs for answers anytime disability is mentioned or raised. Sadly, children born with such deformities are considered bad omen for the family and society at large. In some parts of Ghana, children born with physical and mental disabilities, including hearing and visual impairment, are believed to be spirit children, known in the Akan language as Insuba. These children are often abandoned at the riverbanks in the middle of the night to die. It is believed that the gods of the river will come for their children. Parents to these special children who fully do not understand disability-related issues usually curse the day they were born due to total neglect by family, society, and even spouses. The stigma associated with disability has resulted in many disabled children being abandoned to suffer on the streets or die. The few parents who become enlightened and muster the courage to accept these children are often confronted with the physical, emotional, and mental struggles of raising children with special needs all by themselves. Some of these parents see beyond the disabilities of their children to offer the necessary support to them like any individual. It has almost become a norm seeing a good number of persons with disability on the streets who have taken to begging for alms to survive at will or forced. Others who want something better for themselves also struggle to find some menial jobs to do to earn a living. With majority of persons with disability often seen as beggars, there are still some who have worked over the years to prove to all that disability is not inability. These individuals put in extra work to become shining examples for others to emulate. In my quest to keep highlighting the abilities of physically challenged persons, I met Dr. Godson Ahuto, a lecturer at the University of Ghana, Legon, who is visually impaired. The 56-year-old lecturer describes disability as follows.
If you ask me, it is anything that serves as a barrier to the functioning of any part of the body that is considered normal for everybody. And here in this case, it could be just a part of the body, your arm, your eye, your hearing, and so forth.
Though Dr. Ahuto was born with a sight challenge, he was unaware of his condition. He thought every individual was like him until in 1982 when he realized he was born different.
When I went to secondary school, then the Wenchi Secondary School, which is an integrated school, that's the blind and then the sighted together in the school, that the resource person for persons with disabilities there, and that was generally the visually impaired, suggested that no, looking at me, I will need to go for special examination. I was taken to Agogo in 1982, and it was there that the declaration was that by their standard, I am blind.
When news of his disability was revealed to him, he took a decision to become the best version of himself. He tells me his disability never discouraged him from rising to the top, even though he was the only person among his siblings with some form of disability. Even with his high hopes, he disclosed the many sad moments when thoughts of being born different got the greater part of him.
It didn't make such a difference in my life, no. Yes. But the difference, however, is when maybe, because it was detected that I have ulcer on both eyes and sensitive to sunlight, at times it can be terrible, most painful. And it is that agony that will make you regret certain conditions.
He recounts experiences of total neglect by some family members, siblings, and even colleagues at school playing on his mind. Dr. Ahuto explained how songs of his sight challenge were composed by some family members back in the days just to make mockery of him, and tells me more about his darkest days.
Kintampo is a place where there are a lot of mangoes. So traders from Tamale or north and even outside the country come to buy, and it has been the source of income for the youth and children, because that season you could go and then pluck a lot and then you sell. But when I go with my own brothers, I come with empty baskets. So it was on one occasion, coincidentally, our father returned from work to meet, and they were selling just in front of his house. That's where the people were buying. So he asked, so what is yours? So I sold this. Then they asked me, so how much did you get? I said, oh, nothing. I said, what? I said, he's getting angry. I said, oh, it is true. I did not get any mango. Where did you go? I said, I went with my brothers. So he was mad at them and called them, asked them. So if each of them had given me 10 pieces of mango, wouldn't I have sold something? And he asked a question. Do they know whether in life I will make it to the top and they will depend on me?
Regardless of Dr. Ahuto's visual impairment and its associated challenges, he was determined to change the narrative.
Growing up and so forth in my school, I still have the feeling that if my condition was better than someone's else, that was my thinking all the time. I can do it. Well, I could also read to colleagues who are totally blind. Yet they were more brilliant, and I learned a lot from them. So it had not been an impediment to me. Yes, one unfortunate thing is that a lot of interpretations are given from home, that it is a spiritual cause, it is that. Well, I'm a student of religion. I will not rule out that possibility.
His quest to erase the notion that persons with disability are handicapped and cannot rise to the tops in society was unrelenting. With the support of his late father, he defied all odds to become one of the best lecturers at the University of Ghana.
Looking at my own situation, I felt famine, which is very common in our hometown and elsewhere. I could not manage it. So if I could continue and be a teacher, then the idea of the sun or sound getting into my eye will not be a problem. So all along I've been reading, and I was one person who has read our father's books. It is not that I'm disappointed or something that I know that I'm a teacher. I will not change my teaching profession.
Dr. Ahuto holds a PhD in religion studies. According to him, imparting knowledge on others, irrespective of his condition, gives him fulfillment.
I had advised that then I should stop teaching. But I thought I could still teach it because I don't need to read anything in lecture room for students or whatever I teach. But God being so good, during the just after the lockdown, I went to the eye clinic, Crystal Eye Clinic at the Gentile. They noticed, well, I've been going there all along that there's something on the eye that needs to be scrubbed. I agree. They did it, and God being so good, since then I've never experienced any pain on the eye.
His passion for teaching influenced his decision to turn down other equally important and more rewarding jobs. But how does he go about the teaching business?
The teaching side is not a big deal. It's easy to explain it to anybody that, yes, you can teach and so forth, impart knowledge and so forth. But the issue that people ask is, how do you mark? I mark my own scripts. The difference in my case is that I will not mark it outside or be reading things outside, but in my office like this, I can read everything on my own. And now that also students are to do assignments, most of them coming in soft copies, it makes the marking even more easier.
He disagreed to the notion that persons with disability cannot compete with others in their quest to occupy leadership roles in society.
There may be occasions where others are motivated by getting money so quick. So they will feel that begging, I'll get my daily bread. So if that is the case, why should I study? Why should I go to school? Why should I do that? It has been the case of many people. Even some of them may go up to secondary school and quickly say that, oh, I'm going to join a band. Forgetting that the higher you go in the education ladder, the wider the opportunities appear in front of you. So they should set a target that this is what I will do.
From Legon, I was told of a 32-year-old gentleman with a mobility challenge doing amazing things at Brigade, a suburb of Nungwa in Accra. Walking through his vicinity, I realized a huge problem which has to do with mobility. Though I have not met my host to see the severity of his challenge yet, I was alarmed, and thoughts of how he commutes within the neighborhood in his wheelchair filled my thoughts. Alas, I finally arrived at my destination and walked in straight to meet with my host, Christopher Agbega.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome to Chris K Studios.
Thank you. How are you doing?
Good, how is he?
Let me grab a seat. Okay, so what's happening here?
So I produced this beat just on Saturday.
Okay.
It's just layered, so everything that they're seeing now is like how the beat is layered.
Christopher's mobility challenge was not by birth. According to him, he received a shock of his life one morning when he woke up from bed and suddenly realized he couldn't move his legs anymore. The whole episode was like a dream to him, but reality is, since then, he has never been able to walk again. The genesis of his condition began when he was only 15 years old. He fills me in on how it all unfolded.
My dad actually had the condition. When I was growing up, I thought he had an accident.
But then later on, when I started experiencing the symptoms, this was somewhere in 2006. Then I began to ask questions, and that was when I knew that okay, it was more than what I thought it was. But I mean, that was very challenging because here is a young boy who is very energetic, almost all over the place, now entering into, you know, that adulthood, trying to find your ground and understand what it is that your future is going to look like, and then you're now faced with the unexpected.
His quest to get the right diagnosis for his condition became very difficult due to financial constraints, which eventually had a toll on his education. That notwithstanding, he has strived to further his education with the limited resources. Christopher has a professional certificate in broadcast journalism from the African University College of Communication in Accra and another from Global NCD Alliance in Switzerland. Christopher chronicled how he battled with his health for 9 years, switching between hospitals before finally getting to know that his predicament was hereditary motor sensory neuropathy. He struggled with the reality of his mobility challenge for many years before finally accepting to live with the condition.
I'm the only child of my parents, so you can imagine like all the trauma and everything, and it was very daunting. Like it was emotionally draining, especially because it took me 9 years to get my diagnosis because of money. When you go to Kolebu, they're like, do an MRI scan, you can't do it. So you see, you are dealing with a condition where you don't even know what the condition is, but you are dealing with it. So emotionally, how then do you even manage? You are smiling small, you're in your corner, you are sad. You know, it was a mixture of everything.
Determination, resilience, and the never give up attitude pushed him to overcome the many challenges aimed at stopping him from shattering the glass ceiling. He saw his abilities with time and pursued it with passion.
My course at AUCC, for example, the class was on the 3rd story of the whole the building. It was difficult, but you see, sometimes if you take that step, help will come. So I used to have help from my friends who would help me up the stairs and down, and they did it for 3 months straight. Nobody complained. The fact that I was around and they would see me in class was their joy. You know, so for me it wasn't easy. There were times where I wasn't able to follow through with some of the things I wanted to do because I'm dealing with something. And one thing about a neurological condition too is that it presents itself differently every day. You can be very strong today, tomorrow you are down.
Some of Christopher's challenges include difficulty in accessing public facilities, access to transportation, among others. He explained that his convenience comes with extra financial cost.
My convenience comes at an expense, unfortunately. I am not able to use public transportation. Let me start from that. I can't use a trotro. And so I have to rely on either a taxi or the online transport services like Yango, Bolt, and Uber. And that alone comes with its cost. How I've been able to get through all of that to this very point, I think, is just to the glory of God, because there are times where I don't have it. So how then am I able to say go to work, you know, and then go and, you know, work and fend for myself? If you don't work, you don't eat. See, one thing about living with a disability is you always want to be independent.
Juggling through many jobs to survive has been the order of the day for Christopher.
I got a job with Preacher, and that has been so helpful because I get to do it from home. You know, less physical outside activity. I can be more efficient from home. So that was it for my advocacy journey and the work I do for the Global and Ghana NCD Alliance. It is advocacy for me is a life thing. It's part of my life. As long as I live, I need to be an advocate. I have to tell the story so that a lot of people know what others are also going through. So for that is something I do out of will and passion.
Even though he is not in good standing financially, begging on the streets is never an option. He believes since he has life, there is still hope to break through one day.
Why I don't beg on the street is I don't think I would be fulfilled if I do that. I've begged before, not on the street, but there was a day I was so stranded and it was so bad. And that day I really had to let ego and everything out of the way, and the person didn't even help me. But every time I look back at that, I'm like, hey, it really had to get to that point. And when I'm in a car, normally my wheelchair was by my side, and there was this guy who was begging. And he came by the window to beg, but then he saw me and he saw my wheelchair, and he got confused. He got confused and he walked away. And the rest of the journey was just me thinking about what had just happened. Why did he walk away? Did what he see hit him? That if he is not on the streets like us begging, and he's rather looking well dressed, going wherever it is that he's going to, what then am I doing on the street?
Aside being an advocate and an institutional scout for Picha, Christopher Agbega is also a hip-hop artist with the stage name Chris K.
Now it's a 3 a.m. town cruise in a Yango. A day low. Many things for mind I know if he let go. Just a little tick and man go explode. Make you know pass fire on this petrol. And ya eke mezibe masa gome. O meka young pearl be odibe no bi atanye. Walk on TVG onya nukunu amegata mwa wunam. Miela no do with the break here. I build that wall from the other side. Do you hear that call at the other right? I no get pick up points. Now I'm locked and I'm lost inside. Chemical and the wall
Currently, Chris K has produced an album with 9 tracks which touches on love, life and everything about humanity. This is how his music career began.
I did radio for a year in 2015, and there was a studio. There was like a studio B to like the radio studio, and there's an engineer there. He was actually in charge of the radio, like technicalities and all of that, but he was also a sound engineer. And we did some few songs together, and the feedback people were giving me was like, wow. Now before then I was also in a church choir, I was playing keyboard, you see. So when I reflect, it goes back and back to show that indeed I've always had something to do with music, but I just didn't take it as serious as I do now.
It is a known fact that the showbiz industry is highly competitive, but Christopher is optimistic that he will soon become one of the best music makers in the world.
I consider myself like a man running with men on horses, right? It's a level playing ground. There's no favoritism or partiality here. So it's either you're good or you're not good. And if I'm going to perform on a stage with the big names in our industry, that is what I look forward to. It means that my product has to be as good as theirs. It shouldn't be subpar and then they listen and say, oh, because he is a person with disability, so we allow him. No. So that was the beginning. But then as time went on, people started really embracing me for how good I was. They hear the music, then later on they see me. So you see, it's no longer the inspiration part again. Like they hear the music and they see me, and they are blown away that, oh, so you actually did a song. Wow.
The difficulty in accessing most of the music studios to record his songs forced Christopher to put together a mini recording studio at home. And this is where his creative prowess in music kick-started.
Show me love and stop all the politics. If you want my vote, say the truth, not the opposite. Power is blinding, numbers are rational. You for do better with we catch international. Show me love and put an end to the pretense. By default, our heart is on defense. I ghost out on weekends for more bread. I miss church.
Access to capital to fund and promote his music is a major challenge for Christopher.
I stay true to my game cause I'm genuine. You ever seen this kind of dude? Man, I'm rare to find. I found meaning to this life. Yeah, I'm so defined. Man, then you cool, daddy dude. Let walk bomb low. All I'm a got now. Oh, one I sue that overdose. I just come through. Truck it, man, on you go. And yeah, get all about me. I'm a better female.
Economically, people with disability like Chris K finds it difficult to even access loans from financial institutions to enhance their living standards because of their low income earning capacity. Despite this, he is not ready to bury his dream. He touched on his high and low moments.
You don't know what exactly is going on with you, but you are living with it. You understand? It's like you sleeping and there's something under your bed always making noise. You don't know what it is, but you are expected to sleep comfortably when the thing is under your bed. How do you live? How do you live? That was my situation for 9 years, until a good Samaritan got me to a hospital. They took my sample, worked on it before they finally found my diagnosis. And this was a 9-year period. So for me, I think that was my lowest moment. For my highest moments, it's a number of things, but I'll say in general, it's just the fact that I'm able to still live. Because there's been times where I thought it was the end.
Generally, the level of participation by persons with disabilities in politics is very low in Ghana. Christopher was worried about the low representation of persons with disabilities at high positions in the country. He emphasized that the perception of society about persons with disability is the major reason many PWDs do not get the opportunity to serve in certain high and public positions. In 2009, the National Council on Persons with Disability was established. Its mandate is to formulate, propose, and evolve policies that would mainstream persons with disability in the national development process. The Council is to ensure that the various policies formulated will be geared towards improving the livelihoods of persons with disability across the country. Madam Amano Biadodu is the Senior Program Officer for the Council.
Everybody has a right, including persons with disability. So persons with disability, a lot of times, get the sidelining. So the council was formed to make sure that they also fall in line, so that everything that individuals without disabilities are going through or getting, they would also get their equal parts. So between the various ministries and agencies, we liaise, to make sure that if a person with disability needs maybe education and the person is not getting the education, we can be like a betweener to make sure that the person is getting the right education.
With the detailed information given on the Council's core mandate, life should have been better for persons with disability in Ghana. But sadly, quite the opposite is seen. The rights of persons with disability are infringed upon on a daily basis, with discrimination amongst them still increasing. Most people are of the view that the National Council for Persons with Disability are either sleeping on the job or have turned a blind eye to the plights of PWDs across the country. But Madame Amanobia holds a different view.
We are very, very much in existence. Like I said, development of policies and other things, a lot of time has to go through Parliament. We have to get approval from Parliament, you have to get approval from the ministry under which you work, and you have to get approval from the various agencies that you deal with. So sometimes it becomes a process that one has to go through. And a lot of times our people, they don't have the patience to wait. Somebody would come to you with an issue and expect that right there and then the issue is resolved. But then you have to let the person know, well, yes, we can do this. And now we have to go through the various institutions in order to get what you need.
According to Madame Amanobia, her outfit has been working hard to empower, cater, protect, and ensure inclusion at all levels for PWDs through the various interventions put in place by the Council.
In Ghana, a lot of persons with disability are not schooled. Not because they don't want to, but because sometimes parents don't understand that they can send their children to school to learn. So a lot of them end up in the informal sector, right? So the Common Fund helps them to set up their own businesses so that they can take care of themselves. Those who need assistive devices and all that also comes from the common fund that they get. Those who have to go to school, sometimes they don't have school fees, and we get to pay their school fees from the district assembly common fund. Other people need to go to hospital. They bring their hospital bills. It's paid from the common fund.
It is estimated that more than 1 billion people, about 15% of the world's population, have some form of disability. This increasing trend, according to the World Health Organization, can be attributed to aging population and increase in chronic health conditions, among other causes. In the 2021 population and housing census, persons with disability constitutes 8% of Ghana's population. The percentage represents about 2,098,138 individuals living with disability. With this huge number of persons with disability, only a few have been able to fight their way through to leadership positions. The rest have either given up or are oppressed by their caregivers. Disability advocates have strongly argued that persons with disability are equally intelligent, have the right skill set, and can occupy any highest positions available if given the opportunity to serve. It is therefore unacceptable to cut them off due to their condition.
I know of persons with disability with university first degrees, masters and what have you, and they don't have jobs because nobody will employ them because they have a disability. They need to be employed because they are very intelligent. Go to the universities, you will see them, and it's not just about teaching. They can do other things. Why? You can sit in a wheelchair and be a hairdresser. You can be a lawyer in a wheelchair. We had Honorable Dasa, the Minister for Chieftaincy and Cultural Affairs. He was blind, but was he not a minister? Was he not doing his work? Why can't persons with disability with the right skills and qualifications be employed or even be represented in Parliament? That is another thing, because when you don't have representation, your voice is not heard.
The Persons with Disability Act 2006, Act 715, was passed by Parliament in 2006 to usher disability rights in Ghana into a new dawn. Under the law, the state is supposed to provide rights such as unrestricted access to public places and buildings, free health care, employment, education, transportation, among others. With all these laws in place, PWDs in Ghana still suffer discrimination in accessing education and employment opportunities.
I'm extremely disappointed in the government, in the legislature and the judiciary, the arms of government that should ensure that when there is a right, it should be fulfilled. Any right that is not fulfilled is no right. The rights, signing these conventions, ratifying them, is just paper talk. The reality on the ground is that persons with disability are in a very, very deplorable condition. They are deprived, they are marginalized, they are stigmatized, they are not in school. Some cannot even eat. You will see people with mental issues lying on the street or alongside the pavements as if they don't belong to anybody. Everybody in Ghana is a citizen, a child of Ghana, and the system must take care of each person.
Since adopting the UN Convention on Protecting the Rights of PWDs 16 years ago, not much have been achieved. In terms of education, there are many barriers inhibiting persons with disabilities to harness their full right to education from the kindergarten level through to university. Interestingly, how most of the school structures are built alone is enough to deter PWDs from being enrolled to acquire the needed knowledge which will propel them to participate fully in national development and compete favorably with others in all sectors of the economy.
Ghana agreed that we will make our structures and public places disability friendly. The moratorium expired in 2016. We are in 2022, 8 years on. That means 16 years. We have failed as a nation collectively. Where are the architects? Before you build something, you are given a permit, isn't it? And within that permit, there should be a rule, and it is there, that structure must be disability friendly. That road must be disability friendly. We should not see any new building without it being disability friendly. The schools, for some reason, they always make the veranda very high. How do you climb it if you have problems with your legs?
According to the United Nations, about 80 to 90% of PWDs of working age in developing countries, including Ghana, are unemployed. Only a handful of persons with disability are given employment opportunities in both public and private sectors across the country. Apart from inaccessible public structures, unfriendly working environment, among others, are some of the major barriers for PWDs.
The nature of the Ghanaian society, the manner in which the physical environment is built, is a hindrance to persons with disabilities. It excludes persons with disabilities from easily participating. Stigma with regards who persons with disabilities are is another issue. Stigma brings up the need for persons with disabilities to be set aside or shunned. That makes it difficult for them to come into mainstream society to work on an equal basis with others.
Some employers have the misconception that employing persons with disability brings bad luck to their organizations.
Most employers often do not think that persons with disabilities have the capacity to work on an equal basis with others. Where they are of the view that persons with disabilities have the capacity to work, some of them have the perception that it costs a lot more to employ a person with disability than to employ a person without disability. Others think that what it takes for them to employ a person with disability is not even available on the Ghanaian market. And an example is, most employers think that to employ a blind person, you need to possibly buy a specialized computer that is not even available on the Ghanaian market, or you need to be able to read and write Braille as an employer or as colleague employees before you can bring on board a person who is visually impaired or blind. Most employers are not aware that blind persons who are literate today are able to work using the normal computer once you install a screen reader application.
Where then is the inclusion clause policymakers have been talking about?
A full inclusion of persons with disabilities in global development by 2030 is not achievable for me, because as we speak, we have been implementing the SDGs from 2015, September 2015, that it was adopted, right? How many years down the line? We are 7 years down the line. And look at a place like Ghana. Ghana is nowhere near being close to even 50% inclusion of persons with disabilities in all that we do. Can Ghana achieve this within the next 8 years? No.
There is a place where if you are a person with disability, you are not allowed to be a chief. You are not allowed to take part in certain activities. They won't even vote for you. We don't even have one single person in parliament who is a person with disability. At the assembly level, you have a few, but in parliament, there is nobody. And that is despicable. Persons with disability are 3% of our population. And if we are leaving out this group from our representation, what are we telling them? Persons with disability are citizens and they have human rights.
A communications law lecturer at the Academic City University, Mr. Spencer Boateng-Mensah, outlined measures employers are to put in place before employing any person with a disability.
It is up to you, the employer, to provide a contract, just like you would do for any other person. You provide a contract and describe the job that the person is going to do, the working hours, time the person needs to report, the amount of money the person is supposed to receive, salary or remuneration, and all of that. That is the basic thing that you have to do. And then, of course, you go ahead to make the environment disability friendly for the person.
Despite the existence of the Disability Act 2006, persons with disabilities are continuously marginalized. Article 715 of the Constitution of Ghana gives PWDs the right to live with their families or participate in any gathering open to the public. It frowns on subjecting PWDs to differential treatment in a residence. It says no person or employer shall exploit or discriminate against a person living with disability. There are calls for authorities to ensure that employers who fail to comply with this constitutional provision are made to face the full rigors of the law to serve as a deterrent to others.
The non-employment of persons with disabilities ought to be an action or an act that will be penalized. And this can be done if Ghana develops an employment equity policy and grows that policy into an employment equity law that makes it some punishable if you refuse to employ a person with disability.
The Disability Act requires that the state sets up rehabilitation centers across all the 16 regions of the country to train disabled people and facilitate their employment. But sadly, these provisions are yet to see the light of day.
So when you look at, for instance, the opportunity to get persons with disabilities rehabilitated to return to normal life after acquiring disability. You have rehabilitation centers that are currently located in about 9 regions out of the 16 regions of Ghana. Unfortunately, these centers are poorly skilled and poorly staffed and poorly resourced generally.
Disability advocates have been working over the years to erase deep-seated myths, erroneous belief systems, traditional cultural practices about disability in all its forms. They believe these serve as barriers to persons with disability venturing into the corridors of power.
As for the deep-seated myths, they are all wrong. All of them, none of them should be tolerated. We must remove them, cancel them, erase them from our minds. That this is a condition that has happened to a human being. Your mother who gave birth to you, she gets a stroke or some illness and she cannot walk. Are you going to throw her away? Are you going to say that she should be disrespected? We must change our attitudes to break the myths. Nobody in this world is a curse. Every human being is a blessing from God.
If we have to change these myths, then we have to change people's attitude. And by changing their attitude, we have to first change beliefs, these negative beliefs, change people's feelings about them and even their intentions. And how can we do that? Of course, advocacy. Of course, in the media, talking about some of these things, demystifying some of these myths is one way of ensuring that at least we change the beliefs, because it is the belief that informs our affection or feelings towards them or even our intention. So we need to change some of these beliefs. We also have to change attitude through the educational system, so that we try and ensure that there is proper integration within the educational system. We go to school with the same people, they receive the same attention, the same care, the same treatment. We don't see them as special people and leave them out.
In Article 272, paragraph C in particular, it talks about the role of the National House of Chiefs or the House of Chiefs in actually doing this. So what Ghana ought to do is roll out specific measures that makes it punishable for people to perpetuate negative cultural practices concerning persons with disabilities.
Over the years, there have been several interventions such as laws and policies aimed at reducing the long history of discrimination against people with disabilities. Ghana adopted the National Disability Policy in 2000 as a further step in protecting rights of persons with disability, but for over 2 decades, stigmatization of persons with disabilities is still pervasive.
We need a proper office which is staffed with proper professional psychologists so that we can care for such one, because these people suffer a lot in terms of the stigmatization they go through. So there's a lot of anxiety. Their self-esteem is even low because nobody is really speaking well of them. Nobody thinks that they are good to do anything. So their self-esteem is very low. So many of them, you find them on the street, is because they don't even think that they have what it takes.
Any form of discrimination is unacceptable. And for that matter, discrimination against persons with disability is equally unacceptable. So at the workplace, if a person with disability is discriminated against, it is embarrassing to all of us as a state. It's embarrassing to all of us as Ghanaian people to have this happen in this country around this time, where every other countries are also trying their best to eliminate all forms of discrimination against anyone.
Disability education is an important part of social development that should be revisited to help children learn more as they grow and build an understanding of their environment. Many people are of the view that awareness creation in parents living with persons with disabilities is key in creating a better future for them.
We have to increase the sensitization. Media houses and the churches and other public fora must be used to increase awareness on acceptance that it is okay for somebody to be a person with disability, so that you cut out the marginalization, you cut out the stigma, the discrimination. All those things are our collective responsibility of making them feel that they are recognized.
Disability advocates have argued that it is about time Ghana put together a database documenting names and qualifications of persons with disability across the country. They believe this, if properly done, can help give the necessary support and include PWDs in any available opportunity or job offers to provide a level playing field to compete with their fellow abled persons.
The other thing we need to have is a database where we will know that at the district level, the regional and the national level, these are the persons with disability with this type of qualification or profession, that if you're looking for them for employment or to participate in any activity, you can go to that database and pull them up.
If you consider the Labour Act, Section 45 would require that government establishes an employment center, public employment center, which will go ahead to register all persons with disabilities who are capable to work. And then this center would then go ahead and find jobs for them. But as I speak with you now, I do not know of any public employment center.
The Sustainable Development Goal 10 strives to reduce inequality within and among member countries by empowering and promoting the social, economic, and political inclusion for all, including persons with disabilities. Goal 11 also calls on member states to provide access to safe, affordable, accessible, and sustainable transport systems for the vulnerable in society, and this includes persons with disabilities. Though many believe Ghana has chalked up successes in some of the SDGs, she still has a long way to go in realizing goals targeting PWDs before 2030.
Where there is a will, there is a way. But the will is not there in Ghana. You and I, we are suffering. So you can imagine persons with disability, their frustrations, their unhappiness, at how we mistreat them. SDGs, we are supposed to account for them by 2030. Tell me, how many persons with disability are in school? That SDG, that talks about education for all. What is Ghana going to say about persons with disability when we are hiding them in rooms and tying them in churches and other places? And so, unless we change our attitudes and let the will of the people embrace persons with disability, then we will be able to achieve these sustainable development goals, talking about no poverty, zero poverty, equality. They are beautiful things, but life is not that beautiful. The reality is pain.
It is a collective responsibility for all citizens to support efforts at ridding the streets of persons with disabilities by provision of alternative sources of income. Government and non-governmental organizations are expected to consciously build the capacity of persons living with disabilities on the legal framework on local governance, disability, inclusion, and human rights to empower them to contribute their quota in nation building. Dr. Godson Ahuto and Christopher Agbega are calling on the powers that be to give special attention to PWDs in terms of job placements, scholarships, and other incentives to encourage them to give off their best.
So don't look at a person with disability and say, oh, because it's a person with disability, they are not fit for my job. No, you're actually missing out on people who are actually skilled to bring you a lot of, productivity. So as an employer, you need to look beyond. You need to broaden your mindset and understand that persons with disabilities are very efficient. Once you have them in a space and you give them the needed tools, they are going to work for you.
There is a word of advice for all.
You could have a child with disability tomorrow. If you don't fix the road, where do you expect your child to pass? If you don't fix the schools, where do you want your child with disability to go to? It's a collective effort. We all have to come on board to make sure that persons with disability access their God-given rights.
The laws are there. I'm not here to say that we should make this law. The laws are there. What we need is enforcement. So within the educational system, we should enforce the laws to ensure that persons living with disability, they can access classrooms and actually have interesting interaction with their classmates too as well. The same way within the workplace too, we should also ensure that all the workplaces, they have the systems and facilities to ensure that it is easier for persons living with disability to actually access the workplace and also work productively.
An American author, Elaine Dalton, once said, "If you desire to make a difference in the world, you must be different from the world." The above quote resonates well with most individuals, including persons with disabilities. Dr. Godson Ahuto and Christopher Agbega are blazing the trail in their respective careers and contributing to national development irrespective of their disability. It is for this reason they are calling on persons with disabilities to strive to acquire the needed skills to push themselves to the top, no matter the obstacle. Dr. Ahuto and Christopher say ensuring that people with disability are well oriented in life calls for innovative solutions and law enforcement. There are also calls that the National Council for Persons with Disability under the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection must be well resourced to properly monitor and evaluate the implementation of disability policies in Ghana.